I want to do an exercise with you to show you how to discover your limiting beliefs. And I've put myself up as a volunteer so you can see my dirty laundry. But anyway, okay. Now, as I said before, our limiting beliefs have originally, for most people, come from their parents. And when you're doing this exercise, remember, this is not about parent bashing, okay? This is not about you did this to me and now I'm like this. It's about knowing that they did the best that they could, because their parents did the best that they could, and it goes so on and so on. And we're doing the best that we can in our current situation, but it doesn't mean we can't change to what we truly would like. So the first thing you could ask yourself is things my parents did to earn and save money. Okay, so that's your first question. What are the things my parents did? Because we're going to give it a prosperity rating out of 10. So my dad, he's European, my mom's Australian. My father, he worked 3 jobs. So he actually came from Europe. He doesn't have an education. He didn't speak English very well. He lived on a farm. And he came to Australia and he worked 3 jobs. And they were like dishwashing jobs and, you know, tough jobs. And the way he saved money and treated money was that you put everything into the mortgage and then you save the rest, okay? Now my mother, she worked in a factory when she was very young in Melbourne, and that's how she met my dad. And then later, from all the time I knew, she was like worked in babysitting. So that tells me what I've learned is that you've got to work really hard, because my dad worked 3 jobs, and you have to basically not have much fun, because you've got to work for the mortgage and then everything else is saved, right? And I was speaking to friends about this, and different nationalities tend to have kind of the same consciousness. So if I was to rate my prosperity rating for my parents out of 10, with 1 being low and 10 being high, I would say that their prosperity rating would be about a 3. And that's nothing against them, that's just the way it was, okay? So the next thing you want to ask yourself is, what are the limiting beliefs that your father had that affected their growth, happiness, and achievement? Okay, so with my father, he limited his growth, happiness, and achievement by these following beliefs, which was thinking everybody was a crook, okay? And everybody was out to trick him. So what happened as a result? Yeah, that's what happened. He was always being tricked, and he was always, you know, things were underhanded, and so that was one of his limiting beliefs. And I always remember him using the word crook. If he couldn't speak much English, he could definitely say crook and trick me, okay? He didn't believe in wasting money and enjoyment. As I said before, it was all about putting money in the mortgage and saving. And that meant, even though he traveled from Europe to Australia, it was all about finding work. It wasn't about exploring the world. Okay, so different mentality to obviously what a lot of us have, because look where we are. The other thing is he was hooked on status. So we always lived in Canada in the best street, in the nicest building, but we had no furniture inside, okay? Or we had really horrid furniture, and I was embarrassed to have my friends come over because we didn't have anything to sit on that was nice. So we had the outside that looked good. And that's the other thing, when he bought things, he always bought quality. So we always had good clothes and good things like that. But that's outside stuff. You know, that didn't contribute to our happiness or our comfort within our home. The other thing is he got caught up on how far he could go. Now, he believed that if he worked really hard, he could buy a house for $700,000. But if you said to him, what about a $7 million house? No way. He did not believe his capabilities, his knowledge, his skills stretched to that. Because he knew how much he could earn working 3 jobs a week, and he knew that it wouldn't get him a $7 million house or be able to even get that type of mortgage. And he also believed, not for himself, obviously, but for me, that I needed an office job in order to make money. Okay, so that was one of the main things. Education was huge for him because he had no education. So fortunately for me, you know, I went straight from high school to university. That was something that wasn't afforded to him, so it was very important for him that I had it. And I'm grateful for that. And also, he had a huge focus, and I can't stress the word huge enough, on money. I would have to say that was probably his #1 priority. He would talk about it, think about it, dread about it, fret about it. And you know, if you came to our house, my mother used to cringe because all he'd want to talk to people about was money, which is a kind of highly sociable discussion. But that was his main focus. So you can tell that that's how it filled his life. Okay, now if I go on to my mother, how she limited her growth, happiness, and achievement is that she hooked into my father's beliefs. So how easy is it? I mean, you can think of people in your family or your good friends, and you probably all very much have a similar belief system. If you don't, they're probably the ones in your family that you fight with, right? On the whole, you tend to have a similar belief system. She also lacked a lot of confidence in herself. So she didn't believe in herself, and therefore, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. So she lacked confidence. She also believed you needed to work for others to make money, but it was interesting because she was so obsessed with me being in an office working for corporate clients, but she'd never worked a day in her life for a corporate client. So interesting to hear what she thought. She also believed you had to work hard. She said, and also the thing that I learned was that you had to stay in a job even if you didn't enjoy it. Okay? Because a lot of what they did, they didn't enjoy. There was no joy there. And it's interesting because this is how my life has evolved. My main work now is working with corporations to help people enjoy their jobs because it's such a big part of your life. And so many people are that unhappy that I go in and work with individuals to help make them happier in their jobs. And it's not that difficult, but it also helps in retention and happiness. And to me, it's just all about happiness. So it's interesting that from that belief, I've created a whole career, decades on. Also, she was a perpetual worrier. She worried about everything. If it happened, it didn't happen, it was going to happen, and maybe it wouldn't happen, and then it would happen next year, but it didn't happen at all. Okay, so she was and let me tell you the one thing she worried about. Money, right? My money, her money. They're more interested about my money now than they are about their own. What are you doing? Where are you going? What are you working? My husband and I both work for ourselves. Can you imagine? We stay at home. We don't go into the big buildings in the city with the ants in them. You know what I mean? Like, they're worried about that. So she's worrying all the time. And also, she had a belief about you keep things for good. And I'm going to ask you guys, how many of you guys have the good dinner set that you only bring out for guests? Right? Yeah, me too. How many of you have, like, the good watch and then the everyday watch? Yeah. Okay, a few of you put your hands up. The watch. Yeah. No watch. Exactly. Actually, and we were talking about this, my husband and I, that how few people wear watches these days, especially the younger generation, probably because it's all on their mobile phone. But, also not so that caught up in time like we are. What time is it? What time is it? So she was very much about keeping things for good. So as a result, from those two questions, I was able to look at my limiting beliefs. And I've actually underlined here, in the past, I limited my growth. And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to say in the past. Even though some of it might be true for right now, I don't want to affirm it for now. I want to say it happened in the past, so it's not affecting me. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. So I was thinking that there was never enough, because that's what I believe. There was never enough. Never enough of a lot of things, but never enough money. And also, I believed you had to work hard to make money. And I am quite a hard worker, but I like to work when I like to work and when I want to do it. And, so I like to pace myself. But I'm happy to work, because when you do stuff you enjoy, it doesn't feel like work anyway. And also, the biggest thing that I regret is I stayed in jobs I didn't enjoy. And people, I know other people say, well, that's just the way it is. You don't enjoy your job, you just go, you get your money and you leave. But I actually don't believe that. I don't believe that to be true. And I can honestly say, I always liked the work that I did. My challenge was some of the attitudes that I worked with. And I think a majority of people, like my clients, will come to me and they'll say, I like what I do. It's so-and-so, or it's such and such, right? That's also, say, blaming other people. So to me, it's all about relationships. Work is like any relationship. It's like you have to be happy in it. And often, sometimes when you leave a job that you didn't really love and you walked out the door and you think, wish I'd done that sooner. So just be aware that, it doesn't have to be like that. We don't have to hate or dislike or not want to get out of bed every day. And also, I allowed myself to buy into conditional love, because my parents were like, my dad said to me, I will give you a deposit for an apartment if you buy it in the area that I want. Okay? Thankfully, it's a gorgeous area, so I was good with that. But that's conditional love. So I actually bought into that belief system that, especially with money, there's got conditions around it. There was always strings attached. So that's an exercise to help you discover your limiting beliefs. Okay, so look at what your mother did, look at what your father did, look at what they did to limit themselves in terms of their growth, happiness, and achievement, and then look at yourself.